us into something that is going to create a failed workforce. That's the code. You want our kids to compete. You want us to have the jobs. You want us to take the prize in restoring the American economy. Then our kids got to do well in the 21st century. They're knowledge workers in a service, innovative, knowledge world. That's the only way we're going to keep the standard of living that we have today. We know it. Well, then give me the tools to make it work and quit keeping us locked into ideological battles that do not apply. The top one, million files, two-way dual language. You've come to this conference how many years? We've known this how many years? Josie, are you here?
Years.
We've known this in Austin how many years? How many of you have gone to testify in Austin? Okay, raise your hand if you've testified. There is the problem. I'm sorry to ask more of you. I feel like Vince Lombardi. I'm sorry to put more on your plate. I'm sorry that you now have 42 kids in your class because we don't have equity in the system in Texas. I'm sorry that you've got a tax system that's number 50 in the country and it's not putting into the very minds that they need to have equity of a great education. The money follows what we want to accomplish. I'm sorry that there were tax cuts in the inheritance tax that is only paid by millionaires, and $358 million no longer comes into the Texas Treasury. And the way they made that up is they raised tuition on college students. I'm sorry about that. I apologize. I did everything I could to stop it. But this is the most important issue in education. In America, when a student in AOA school is wondering, what does this word mean? Sheep, cheap, and ship. I have never understood it. And help me out. Because without that academic vocabulary describing that future, how in the am I going to learn math? I missed out that whole foundation. I didn't get it. And when I came to school and I had 500 words in English that mostly came from the back of a Coca-Cola, and I'm competing with the kid in Highland Park that had 30,000 words by the third grade because her grandmother was reading 5 hours a day, and my grandmother isn't even in his country. How am I going to compete? You with me? This is the issue of America. This is the change that people are talking about in education. It is not drill, 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 test, drill, 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 test. Put truant officers out to keep the very kids that need to be educated from even getting in the classroom and farming them out for money to a charter where they fail instantly. Don't think it's going on? It's going on. Get this, put it on your forehead. You'll feel odd for the first week. It comes off in the shower, so don't worry about the weekends. You're not going to have to go out Friday night with this. Get it, put it on your forehead. These slides are available. Only 2 slides make the case. The Houston slide and this case. Because guess what? No one in the legislature knows what I'm talking about. So you're a humble public servant in the legislature for 12 years. By the way, do I have a little time for one story? I'm in the Peace Corps. I'm in Africa. I've been there 6 months. There was no one else in this village of any, it was an African tribal village. I thought I was King Kong and I wanted to be the most guy way out. So I'm in Sierra Leone. You heard about that place? Blood Diamonds. I think I bit off a little more than I could chew when I went to that country. And I asked for the place up by the mountains where the elephants were because there were no teachers, no volunteers, no other Peace Corps guys there. So I've been there 6 months and you learn 20 words of Quranto. And you don't learn Quranto, you don't eat. So there's a good crash course in how to learn a language. You want to eat, you better learn the language. Can you tell me what chicken is in this language? Because I'd like to buy one. So I've been there 6 months, and the chief comes in, and he's talking with a guy that speaks Pidgin English. That's the language of that country. And a lot of these old economies was the language of the colonial master. It was England in this case, so they spoke Pidgin English. And say, "Usha you komots?" That's English for "where are you from?" So the chief comes in and he goes, "Ininki kirikan ida ina yore." They speak with clicks here. Man, I've never, even on Friday nights here in El Paso, we don't speak with clicks. And he's saying, the chief wants you to know that where you tie the cow, that is where the cow will eat the grass. And I'm saying, I bet that's true. The chief was using the metaphors of the Bible and of Aesop's fables to communicate what he was trying to tell me at the end of the conversation, which was an assignment that he was giving to me. And we did it. And his assignment was, I love what you're doing in the creation of food. We need it. It's rice. It's our staple. But what we need is water. We have dysentery every day. The primary need, the immediate need, is we need water. And so, Peace Corps voluntarily at Shapleigh, yes sir, let's get it going. I had no idea how to get a water system done in Africa. We did it, 2.5 years. What's the point? The point is this. It's not hard to know what we got to do. You've got to build enormous capacity for teachers that know how to do what you do. You are the knowledge leaders of the future, and you've got to implement strategies to seed what you know immediately. Not in 10 years in a textbook where you're battling over, was George Washington a communist or a right-wing guy? You can't do it anymore. It's wasting people's time to get into that system. You've got to make that change in real time, and real time is where you work, right? That's what we got to do. We've filed 50 bills to get this done. UTEP, increase the number of teachers that can be two-way certified in this state by 40% and do it in 10 years. And Josie comes and says, where's the tuition money? You're going to have to put it in because I got to have the money. And if you put a little incentive where we get a person that gets 2 years of college paid for, if they'll go into this, it'll work better. I filed the bill. Doesn't happen. I filed all kinds of versions of these bills to try and make these things happen. And the case, the fundamental case, is not understood because the messenger of the future from El Paso, Texas, is not speaking to the person whose mind has to be changed, who is the person in your delegation. That's whose mind has to be changed. They don't know the facts. Not one person in the El Paso delegation knows this stuff. I love them like brothers and sisters. They didn't do their homework. Common thing in school, right? Then you're going to have to make them do their homework too. Last session, sorry to say, my last appearance before the Education Committee, bill number 300 on changing Texas education, giving credit for college, creating capacity at UTEP, devising evidence-based strategies so that you use that as the test and not what the superintendent who came from Oklahoma or Alaska or Canada wants to do in your district. Do the things that you know work, that have a complete file. You know it works. And get the state moving in that direction with the code word evidence-based and start an academic vocabulary, then the foundation for math. And then let's make the time available to do the extra things that we need to do to get that young mind from sheep to ship and understanding it. What happens to these bills? This is what happens. This is a poll from last week on what happened in Arizona. And it is a reflection of the population now. And if you look in the Republican cohort, was Arizona right to take that action? 77% yes. Democrats, 43% yes. And unfortunately, the issues of I'm going to be blunt, prejudice are clouding what we have to do in education. You know what works. And so when you lay out a bill in the Senate Education Committee, and the leader of the Tea Party caucus, I'm going to just lay it out like it is, a radio talk show host who is now a senator from Houston, and you lay out the bill, and I've been there 12 years, and this is a freshman senator who has not spent 1 hour on education issues, doesn't speak Spanish. And here's the secret. Those 7% Anglo, I know them real well, are very afraid that they don't speak Spanish. And suddenly, they're not competitive. That's a problem. And when the San Antonio Independent School District, and looking right down at Alamo Heights is a set of business folks that do business in Monterey every day, right? They adopt the mission statement on dual language. They adopted it when? 1992. So business folks that have to live in a global world have known this for years. Your kids have known it for years. It's these folks who are scared to death of not being competitive in the new world that are stopping it. That's what's happening. That's the reality of the politics that's behind this. And this was the comment when I laid out the bill to increase the capacity at the University of Houston, University of Texas at El Paso, Texas Tech, Pan Am, so that this room would be not 350, but 10,000 folks at this conference, because finally the world recognized that you're leading the change. This is the comment. Go look at it. It's online. I don't understand if you're born in this country and you're 5 years old and you're going to school and have been exposed to television, why we have to teach you dual language. That's the challenge. Now, in my day, I'm not going to tell you when I went to school in El Paso or what 3 years I was in third grade. But in my day, and I'm not advocating in any way that we go back to this brutal time, that person would have been in the corner with a dunce cap. Politically, that phenomenon has to take place. The professionals that know what has to happen need to say it. And you need to get to the people that make the decisions to make it happen. That is the message from the frontier of the future. This is the frontier of the future. That is an act of the past. And you are leaders, and you're leaders across the board. Thank you for hearing. Thank you for coming. And welcome to the frontier of the future. Gracias.